Blood of the Crimson Tree. Chapter 1. The Silent Clearing. Alden crouched at the edge of the forest, his axe gripped tightly in his rough, calloused hands. His broad shoulders were hunched under a leather cloak, and his dark brown hair, streaked with gray, hung loose around his weathered face. A jagged scar crossed his cheek, a reminder of a wolf attack in his youth. "This place doesn't feel right," he muttered, his piercing blue eyes scanning the clearing ahead. Beside him, Mira knelt, her delicate fingers brushing the ground. Her raven-black hair was tied back in a loose braid, revealing high cheekbones and pale skin that seemed to shimmer faintly in the moonlight. She wore a simple dress of dark gray, cinched at the waist with a belt that held several vials of glowing liquid. "It's not right," Mira agreed, her soft voice tinged with unease. "The air is heavy with magic." A third figure, Garrick, stood a few paces away, his translucent form barely visible in the moonlight. His ghostly features were frozen in a grimace of pain, and his hollow eyes stared at the crimson tree in the center of the clearing. "This is where I died," Garrick said, his voice a low, mournful whisper. "And where many more will follow if you don't stop it." The tree's bark was a deep blood red, its gnarled branches stretching upward like claws. Thick sap oozed from its trunk, pooling on the ground like dark ichor. "We shouldn't have come," Alden said, gripping his axe tighter. Mira stood, her green eyes glinting with determination. "We have to end this before it spreads." Chapter 2. The Cursed Healer. As they stepped into the clearing, Alden couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The shadows under the tree shifted unnaturally, and the air grew colder with every step. Mira paused, her hand resting on one of the vials at her belt. "The tree's sap. It's alive. It carries the curse." Alden glanced at her. "How do you know that?" Mira hesitated, her fingers brushing the scar on her wrist. "Because it's in me." Alden's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" "I was cursed years ago," Mira admitted, her voice steady. "But I've learned to control it. That's why I can feel its presence." Garrick's ghostly figure flickered. "You can't control the tree's curse. It consumes everything it touches." Before Mira could respond, the ground beneath them began to quake. Dark roots erupted from the soil, writhing like snakes. "Move!" Alden shouted, swinging his axe at the nearest root. The blade bit deep, but the root recoiled and lashed out, knocking him to the ground. Mira uncorked a vial and hurled it at the roots. The liquid exploded in a burst of green light, and the roots shrieked as they retreated into the earth. "This is only the beginning," Garrick warned. Chapter 3. The Bloodstains. The trio made their way closer to the tree, their footsteps squelching in the sticky crimson sap that coated the ground. Alden's boots were stained red, and the smell of iron was almost overwhelming. "Do you feel that?" Mira asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Alden nodded. The air around the tree pulsed as if it had a heartbeat. "This isn't just a tree," Garrick said, his ghostly form hovering beside them. "It's a gate. Something is trying to come through." Alden glared at him. "If you knew this, why bring us here?" "Because you're the only ones who can stop it," Garrick replied. "I failed. But you—" He was cut off as a figure stepped out from behind the tree. It was a woman, her skin as pale as bone and her eyes black as night. Her long, flowing dress was stained with blood and her lips twisted into a cruel smile. "Welcome," she said, her voice echoing unnaturally. "I've been waiting for you." Chapter 4. Roots That Bleed. Alden raised his axe, but the woman didn't move. Instead, she gestured to the tree, and its roots erupted from the ground once more. This time, they were covered in thorns dripping with blood. "You cannot kill what feeds the earth," the woman said, her voice cold and mocking. "Watch me," Alden growled, charging forward. The roots lashed at him, but Mira threw another vial, creating a protective barrier of green light. "Stop wasting your strength," the woman hissed. "You will all be part of the tree soon enough." Garrick's ghostly form moved toward the woman. "I know you," he said, his voice trembling. "You were here the night I died." The woman's smile widened. "And you'll die again tonight, little ghost." Chapter 5. The Dead Who Won't Stay Dead. The ground beneath the crimson tree began to shift, and skeletal hands clawed their way out of the earth. The corpses were covered in blood-red moss, their hollow eyes glowing faintly. "Perfect," Alden muttered, swinging his axe at the nearest skeleton. The blade shattered bone, but the creature kept coming. "They're feeding off the tree's magic," Mira shouted, uncorking another vial. "We can't fight them all." "Then what do we do?" Alden demanded, dodging a skeletal hand that reached for his throat. "We need to sever the tree's connection to the curse," Mira said. "But I don't know how." Garrick pointed to the woman. "She's the source. Take her down, and the tree will weaken." Easier said than done. The woman stood under the tree, her hands raised as she chanted in a language none of them understood. The roots grew thicker and more aggressive, and the skeletons multiplied. "This is hopeless," Alden growled. "No," Mira said, her green eyes blazing. "We can do this together." Chapter 6. Mira's Dark Secret. As the battle raged, Alden noticed the faint shimmer on Mira's skin growing brighter. Her movements became faster, almost inhuman, and her voice took on an otherworldly tone as she hurled vials with precision. "What's happening to you?" Alden asked, his voice laced with suspicion. Mira hesitated. "The curse. I'm using it." "What?" Alden demanded, swinging his axe at another skeleton. "You said you had it under control." "I do," Mira insisted, though her glowing skin told a different story. "But I have to use its power to stop this." Before Alden could argue, the woman under the tree let out a piercing scream. The ground shook violently, and a massive crack split the earth, revealing a chasm of glowing red light. "It's too late," the woman hissed, her voice trembling with triumph. "The gate is open." Chapter 7. The Beast Under the Tree. From the chasm rose a creature unlike anything Alden had ever seen. Its body was a mass of writhing roots, its eyes glowing like molten lava. Its roar shook the forest, and its massive limbs crushed everything in their path. "We can't fight that," Alden said, his voice barely audible. "We don't have to," Mira said, her hands glowing with magic. "We just have to seal the gate." Garrick floated toward the creature, his ghostly form flickering. "I can distract it, but you'll need to move fast." Alden looked at Mira. "Are you sure about this?" "No," she admitted, "but it's our only chance." Chapter 8. The Final Seal. Mira began chanting, her voice merging with the hum of the tree's magic. The beast roared and lashed out, but Garrick stood in its path, his translucent body absorbing the blows. "Now, Mira!" Alden shouted, swinging his axe at the roots holding the tree upright. The tree groaned as it began to topple, its crimson bark splitting open. The woman let out a final desperate scream as the light from the chasm began to fade. Chapter 9. The Shadows Escape. The gate sealed and the beast disappeared, but the tree's roots continued to writhe. The woman collapsed, her body crumbling into ash. "It's over," Alden said, lowering his axe. "No," Mira said, her voice hollow. "It's not." The ground beneath the tree began to tremble again, and a faint, malevolent laugh echoed through the clearing. "What now?" Alden asked. Mira's glowing eyes met his when she spoke. "The curse isn't gone. It's just waiting." As they started to walk away, the tree's roots started curling into the soil, the curse lying dormant, but it was far from destroyed.